Welcome, everybody. Those who came out on this beautiful night, number one, and everybody who stayed safely at home on Zoom. Thank you. I don't think we have any new, do we have any new members? I'll just ask. I don't think we have any new members, but we have a guest. Amy Kaufman is here.
She's not a guest.
She's not, oh, you joined? Oh, she's an honorary member.
She's an honorary member.
That's right.
She's been here for the last 3 times. She's taking up the ladies.
She was not here the last 3 times.
A relatively new member.
Do we have any relatively new members? Thank you for coming. So that's the welcome, and I'll just do a quick, ask Rick to do a quick treasurer's report, and we'll talk about some priority business, which isn't much, and then we'll do the demo. John will do the demo.
So with the memberships and then we had the web hosting that'll come out, and then also the chapter insurance got paid. So right now we're sitting at about $2,200 in the account. So
Great. Reminder, Open Shop is not this Saturday, it's a week from Saturday on the 14th from 9 till 12. A reminder, dues were actually due last month.
yeah, but I'll still take them.
But Rick will still take them.
Yeah.
So anybody who is not paid and wants to be a member for 26, get your stuff into Rick. I think all the information was in the 2 emails that went out this week, one from the from Treasurer and one from Patty and John. I think that was me. I just reiterated tonight's meeting was going to be held. And that's all the priority business I have. There's other things we'll talk about after show and tell. But first I'm going to turn it over to John Kelsey, who has put together a nice spindle demonstration for us.
Yeah, hi. So put that first slide up for a sec, if you would. This is a particularly nice example of spindle turning from the Ethical Cultural Center in Philadelphia. What I like is, I like centered ones rather than up and down ones, and I like how voluptuous that is. It's just great. And you look at it real close, you'll see something you'll see over and over again in this demo. The exact shape of the bulbous forms there, which would formerly be called vases, I call them cannons, isn't the same in each turning, and you don't see that until you really study it. The beads are not quite the same in each turning. You don't see that until you really study it, because what you do see is the elevations are all the same. Everything's at the same height, and what we see is lines of light and shadow. And by having everything at the same height, the spindles look all the same, even if they aren't. And as you approach them closer and closer, new details come into view. It's kind of fun. So that's one of the things that attracts me to spindle turning, and that's one of my favorite examples of spindle turning is that particular balustrade, which I stumbled into about 10 years ago, attending a wood carving event at this place in Philadelphia. So what makes it a spindle? Turn the slide off and put it on me, please. Grain of the workpiece is parallel to the lathe axis. The workpiece is mounted at both ends. The tool rest is typically parallel to the lathe axis, and all cuts are made downhill from large diameter to small. You can pretty much count on that with any form of spindle turning. Next slide, show a slide now. We commonly see spindle turning in architectural work, the other way, that one. Yeah, these are examples of architectural spindles. The center one, the green and yellow, is a house in Lancaster that has a little bit of everything going for it. The post there, you'll see, looks like it's north-south symmetrical, although it's not quite. It has what's in the middle, an important form that often doesn't get named. That's a reel. Reels are often used as transitions in spindle turnings. The balusters along the railing below that have a north-south direction, an up-down direction. They've got a lot of doodads and details going on, but again, what makes them work, they're very close spaced. What makes them work is that all the elements are at the same height. And then in the screen down below is a skinnier version of the slide we saw a second ago. of a centrally symmetrical turning with a ball in the middle and two cannons, which is a form of that is what we're going to make tonight. But we'll get to that in a bit. As you can see on the other slide, the white ones there, typical balusters, they're typically closer together than themselves are wide, or else they're their own thickness apart. What governs there is the building code. It has to be under, I think, 4 inches. You can't have a space in there that's big enough for baby to get his body through, but not his head. Either the whole baby goes through or nothing goes through. So that's what determines that. And also what you see in this one, this has been painted probably 100 times over the last century. All the ditzy little details tend to smear out. So in outdoor spindle turning, baluster turning, architectural turning, ditzy little details are really nice in the spec in the first place. They don't survive paint. You can also see in these two, and I didn't choose this for any particular reason, I just had the slide. If you look closely, you'll see the forms, the vases are not the same. Going from the bottom, you have a square section, a pommel, you have a bun, a cove, a small bead, a vase with a ring on it, another ring that you can't quite see, a little form that I think is probably called a bird's mouth, another bead, and another pommel. These things all have names, and I don't know. I think every turner develops their own form. I know I have my own names for them all. The other place you see spindles is in furniture turning. If you go to the next slide. Spindles make chairs, benches, and table bases in traditional furniture. In pre-industrial times, there was only 2 ways really to get a finished piece of wood in a hurry, and one was with a draw shave on a shave horse, and the other was on a lathe. And I think that's really the reason you see so much spindle turning in period furniture work. And you also see it in contemporary work, like this bench by Mark Sperry. And the thing to notice in all of these is that the forms that are being used are the same, and they're repeated. Repetitive forms, simple 1, 2, 3 proportions. This Windsor chair was made by Michael Dunbar for his book, Windsor Chair Making. I own it. I sit in it often. The front leg there, you can see it has an arrow at the bottom, and then a reel, a vase, and then there's a smaller vase and a tendon through the seat. And those forms are echoed throughout the turnings in the chair. Next slide as well. So, spindle elements. This is what you got. You got bulbs, vases, balls, arrows, bamboos, trumpets, cups, bells, spools, sausages, and reels. Reels are so they're on the drawing, but they're not labeled. And what you see if you study these things is the relationship between the width, thickness, and the length of each element is usually a small whole number. The relationship between the height of each element in a turning is usually a small whole number. The shapes are simple because that's all we got. You have a straight line, you're going to have a concave curve, you have a convex curve. It can be tilted one way or the other, and it can be elongated or shortened. You can't make a knotted form. You can't make a 4-dimensional form. We're stuck with solid. These are really solids of revolution from a pretty simple line revolving to make the form. And yet we get infinite variation. The proportions that you see in this old work, like in that drawing, we can do lots of things that are not quite the same. And the curves are almost always Grecian and Roman. Grecian curves tend to be elliptical, asymmetrical. Roman curves tend to be round like a compass. And there are transitions, vertices, fillets, shoulders, flats, and what I think Angelo calls a bird beak, which you'll see a bit of that too. Okay, now spindle design is go to the next slide. Yeah, there. Now, I didn't realize this until I stumbled into this old book and really started to look at spindles closely. Almost all old work only has 3 diameters. It has the outside diameter, a root diameter, and an intermediate diameter. And every element in that turning will probably be brought to one of those diameters. There's no rule that says it has to, but the eye likes that, and the eye likes to see it that way. The eye likes to see rhythmic forms. a thing that I also learned from one of these old books that it took me a long time to figure out is in a spindle like this, the transition between here and here, that's going to look best if that's a right angle. And you often see them, and this is also a right angle. It looks less good when it's not a right angle. I don't know why that is. It's just the eye likes that. And similarly with most of the transitions in a turning, the eye likes them if they're right angles. They don't look quite right when they're not. And you can get really, I got a bad example here. This is an old spindle I made a long, long time ago as a practice exercise, and we're going to do a practice exercise in just a minute. This one has all the things wrong with it that you might expect. It's beads and coves. The coves are not the same. The beads are of different widths. The beads lean and tilt every which way. They're not all the same width. They go out like this. The transitions are nowhere near right angles. And it looks like, to my eye, it looks clumsy. And when you see a piece like this that's done well, like that first slide I showed, it's just a completely different world. And those little details are what makes this stuff look good. Now this is the kind of practice exercise they used to give us, you know, turn beads, coves, and fillets, and you've done, what, I don't know, 6 or 8 of them and you're done. You can get a lot more better practice with what I'm going to do in a minute. First we're going to do a little bit of tools. Let's see. I wanted to talk about all of the tools briefly. Measuring tools in particular. One of the things we get to be concerned about a lot with, let me see, what order do I do this in? I'm going to come back to measuring tools. I'm going to talk about tool angles for a second. We're only going to use 4 tools. We're going to use a skew, parting tool, spindle gouge, and a roughing down gouge. And the first thing everybody asks is, you know, what is the angle of these tools? I generally sharpen more, partly by hand and partly with jigs, and so I measured all of my tools, and I have a couple of observations about that. One is my tools had deviated quite a lot from what I thought they were, and it took a while to bring them back. And second, it's really quite hard to get an accurate angle measurement on a turning tool, especially on a gouge. And I've learned some things about how to do it. This is the best tool for that, for measuring the angles of tools. It's pretty easy to measure the skew, for example, the included angle. If you tuck it in there and get the wings of the gauge to touch both sides, find that this skew has an included angle of 34 degrees, which is what I want. I want to be around 30 degrees on all the tools. All of the old guys use 30-degree angles. A lot of recent literature got up to higher angles, like 35 and 40 and 45-degree angles, and it works, but it doesn't work as well as a 25 to 30-degree angle. If you want to really get into that, Mike Darlow's written a pretty good book about it, a little book that's available about where he makes a very good case for the 30-degree angle and a lot of ways of getting there. And the skew is also measured as a skewness angle as well as a sharpness angle, and I'll just have you take my word for it. This is a 70-degree skew. When you find your skew is not 70 degrees, it's very tempting to keep working on the bevels. And I like a flat bevel, and I grind it on the flat side of a CBN wheel. It's very easy to try and work on the bevels and change the angle of skewness. That's this angle. It doesn't work. What you have to do is draw on the metal the angle you want and go straight into the grinder to create that angle, and then you can create the new bevels to it. Make the new angle here first and sort the bevels out, rather than the other way around. With a gouge especially, it's not always easy to get a good reading of the angle, and I've never actually ever had the same reading twice. This one also is about 35 degrees, and that's kind of where I want it. This is a fingernail gouge. People call it a detail gouge. It's a half-inch rod, so it would be called in our terminology a half-inch gouge. I sharpen this with using the usual jig, the Wolverine-style jig. that makes a hollow grind back here, and it leaves a heel here, and I grind that heel off. I find that heel almost always scuffs the work, and you got to get rid of that heel if you don't want to scuff the work. You'll never get the damn scuff out otherwise. So spindle gouge, parting tool, included angle on a parting tool is, there's a lot of ways of measuring the angles. I often end up drawing them and then measuring the drawing because it's pretty easy to cut yourself this way. Anyway, this is a 42-degree included angle. The thing I want to say about the skew also, it's kind of important that the knife edge of the skew be parallel to the faces as opposed to wee-wall one way or the other. When it's wee-wall, you really can't control it, or you really don't know where it is. And it's worth the time to get the skew right. And I found as useful as it is the angle gauge, it's equally useful just simply to measure. And in my shop, I have these little rulers everywhere. The thickness of this is a little over 3/16, and I want the bevel therefore to be around 3/8, and it is. If the bevel is twice the length of the thickness of the tool, you're going to be in the 30, 35 degree neighborhood. It's quite hard to really figure out. This is an included angle, so where's the right angle for right angle triangle work? You know, it's two straight triangles. I drew them full size and did a whole bunch of measuring to be sure I was giving you straight goods here. And it's the same with the spindle roughing gouge. The angle here is also, I'm not going to measure it, it's also about 35 degrees. This one, I'm in fact working its way back to a longer bevel. I would like this to be sharper than it is. This is 1.5 inch spindle roughing gouge. Call it a spindle roughing gouge. It is only ever used on spindles. The reason for that is this, whereas this is forged from ground from a rod, this is forged from a flat. There's a really narrow tang here. You take this over to a faceplate turning and you catch it on the grain. What probably happens, well, I know what happens because it's happened to me, is it's going to grab, it's going to bend right there, and the handle's going to hit you in the chin, or worse. So don't use these on anything but a spindle. Okay, questions, comments on tools? I went over that pretty fast. I just wanted to get the basics down. Yeah, back there.
On your skew, a lot of the skews come with right angled sides. It looked like yours was rounded. Did you do that on a grinder, or did you get a? Did you buy one?
This is right angle skew, and I have ground the bottom corners round. I would like this bottom to be quite round, and I'm working towards that on the short point. This is a long point and a short point. There are also a lot of skews that are oval in section, and a lot of skews come with a curved end there, and I have them all at home. I can't get much good luck out of any of them. They're trickier to use than this. This skew is easier to use and more forgiving to me than the other ones. The other skew I like a lot is this one. It's a German fishtail skew. It's used by the toy makers. And it's, I don't know, it's thinner, but I find it works pretty well, and we'll see it in action in a little bit. About a little bit wider than this one.
Does it have a rounded edge on it, Ron? The German one, does the German one have a rounded?
It has a rounded bottom, rounded both edges. Yeah. And the practical advantage of that is a lot of what you do with the skew is you're rolling the skew over. Well, if this is round and on the tool rest is round, it'll roll nice and clean. If it's square here, you know, it's got a bump, and that bump is going to show up in the work. And you have to learn to work with it. The other measuring tools we use a lot are these kinds of things. You want to know diameters. Vernier caliper. I use this one a lot. Dial caliper, plastic dial caliper, non-magnetic. I do a lot of magnet work. These can also be used, of course, to measure the depths of holes. But this one is particularly useful for measuring the diameter of a spindle and for parting down to it. The traditional tool for that, of course, is this guy, spring caliper, and I'll show you them both in use in a minute. A lot of people use this a lot to mark diameters. I don't. I go at it in a slightly different way. I'll explain when I get to it. Basically, I know that in my 2-inch spindle, my root diameter, my major diameter, and my minor diameter are 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch in. So if I'm in a 1/2 inch from the cylinder, I'm at my root diameter, and I look at that 1/2 inch increment. I can see that better than I can measure it in most cases. And I'll show you what that means in a minute or two. Is there more questions about tools? Tool talk? The other night we had and we did a dry run, we had a lot of chat about tool angles. And I have some ways of drawing them, but I think that angle gauge is probably the best way to go.
Can you tell us again which of the diameters is root, base, and whatever the third? I don't know what your 3 diameters are. Which is the widest and which is the narrowest? And
Yeah.
What does the root mean?
You'll have the diameter of the cylinder itself, and then a minor diameter, which is there, and then the root diameter here, the smallest diameter. I think of this as a major and a minor diameter and the cylinder diameter. You can have any diameters you want, but layout is easier, spindle management is easier, design is easier when you focus on it that way, and it actually turns out it looks better. And it's hard to quite explain things like that, small hole number proportions and not a lot of diameters going on. But I think it's that the eye, we like music, and I think the eye likes rhythmic things the same way as we like music. And I think that finally it comes down to we're creatures of vibration in a vibrational universe, I guess. But we tend to, the eye tends to favor things that are rhythmic and in intervals that we can understand rather than disjointed, jarring intervals. And a lot of people, when they get into fooling around with spindle turning, they just go at it and wail away and make all kinds of forms. And that's a lot of fun. And then you start to look at it and say, that didn't look so good, and start to figure out why. And you end up back where the old guys ended up with clean shapes and small hole numbers and repetitions.
John, can you comment about the whole numbers as opposed to the golden ratio type of thing that we hear a lot talking about?
Yeah, the golden ratio is a really good example of that, actually. It's not a small hole number, it's 1.62 to 1. And for some reason it looks good to the eye. And we see it everywhere. You see it in every pad of paper. This piece of paper is roughly that ratio, not quite, but very close to it. That's the only non-whole number proportion I would use a lot of.
Okay. So you wouldn't object to using that as opposed to whole numbers on your, using that ratio on your spindle is equally valid to the whole number one?
Yeah, I wouldn't object to that. I wouldn't object to anything you wanted to do. I just learned what looks better, what I like to look at.
From the eye catching it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, the eye for some reason is very pleased with that proportion. I don't know. I don't know that we have really good answers to that.
No.
Okay, let me see. We're going to talk about spindle tools. A few angles. This is my own notes. I'm just going to get here for a second and gouge angles. Okay.
Before you go on, John, I got a question, comment about spindle design,
Yeah.
especially on like the balusters where they're all side by side by side. You get a really interesting negative space between the two.
Absolutely.
Is that something you look at while you're designing a spindle?
Absolutely. I'm as much into the spaces in between them as into the spindles themselves. And you can do a lot of play by turning them upside down in different ways around. And we'll talk about that a little more as we get a little further into this. I have a bit of a fetish when I do this kind of work. You can turn from rough wood and get a very nice result. I don't like to do that. I like to turn from wood that I know is square and I know its dimension. So especially if I'm going to make a lot of multiples, I'm going to get all the wood out at once. I'm going to plane it all to the sides. I'm going to use this for a practice piece, and we're going to do a little practice piece here. So practice piece for me is going to be the same as the stock I'm eventually going to use. It's just shorter. It's square in section. The ends are square, and I'm going to find center, which I always do with a marking gauge. It doesn't matter quite where you set it. I set it roughly halfway, roughly an inch This one doesn't even have a scale on it. The kind of marking gauge you want to use has a point like a pencil rather than a chisel point, because you're going to be working on end grain. If you're working cross grain, you might want the other kind of point, but this one's a chisel point. I want it to be set roughly to the middle of the stalk. Can we see ourselves there on the screen? Yeah. And I'm just going to scribe a line from all four sides. I'm actually going to, in the real world, I'm going to do that here. Where am I going to do it anyway? I don't know. See, I'm in a situation. It's not like I am at home. I'm going to do it this way. Scribe a line. Scribe a line. Make a line. And make a line. You end up with a box in the middle because I didn't bother to set it to exactly halfway. And that's going to be the center of the spindle is in the middle of that box. So I'm going to set the point of the awl in there as close as I can, working with the grain lines of the wood. Give it a whack. I want a dimple in that end. So I'm going to mount this. I want a ring center in the tailstock, and I want the number 2 jaws in the chuck if I can get it, or tower jaws if I have tower jaws. The reason for that is the biggest problem in spindle turning is flex. Because as you reduce the diameters, the spindle flexes. As you lean into it, the spindle flexes. If it gets loose, the spindle flexes, and as it flexes, you lose control of the turning. People go to all sorts of steady rest problems, and I've rigged up all kinds of steady rests over the years. And Mike Darlow taught me that just get a hold of this end of the square stick in a 3-4 jaw chuck, and most of your vibration and flexing problems will go away. So when you use, the biggest error is to use a cone point at this end and a driving spur at this end. What happens is, as I tighten the spindle in on the cone spur, it digs its way into the wood. I lean on the wood a bit, this gets loose. I tighten this up again, I drive it onto the driving spur. I wind up making a divot in the driving spur end, and it starts to spin, and you're out of control. Doing it this way, using the ring center, gives you a lot more support at this end, so it doesn't go in, doesn't drive in and make itself a big fat hole, and it doesn't have the ability to go like this. And grabbing it in the chuck at this end will almost solve vibration problems up to about 3 feet in length.
John, are you bottoming it out into the
Yeah.
jaw with the, is it square?
Yeah, I'm bottoming it out. I'm tightening it on the corners, and that's why I want a square stick in the first place. I want to be able to get this back to the same place. I probably won't ever have to do that, but I want to be able to. Let me see. So that's mounting to manage vibration. We've got a regular tool rest here, and we're going to use the regular tool rest. But if you go to the next, just show a slide quick, I'll show you what I do at home when I'm making a lot of something. Next one, there. You can see in the slide there's a long, I have a sample spindle mounted above the lathe so I can look at it. And I'll come to why for that in a minute. I have a story stick there that's on top of a workpiece, and then a long round rod tool rest. And that's just a regular iron bar from the hardware store with a poppet on one end that's in the banjo. And my lathe happens to have a couple of holes in this casting at the tailstock, so I bolted on a couple of blocks that'll catch the other end of that long rod. And that gives me a rod the full length of the spindle, and I have a limited amount of adjustment up and down and in and out, but since this is the sort of thing I'm turning a lot of, I don't need any adjustment. So, and that round rod as a tool rest is much easier to get your hands around than one of these is. A number of the grips that you use in spindle turning, which I'll show you in a second, involve wrapping your hands around the tool rest, and this rest is too big to do that. So I'm going to make sure that this is tightened to this end. This is tightened down, this is tightened down, and this is tightened down. I'm going to get everything off the lathe. Yeah. want to fairly arbitrarily mark a pommel. Say there and there. I want the tool rest to be higher than it is. I'm not familiar with this lathe, so I'm going to wrestle with it for a second. I'll bring that tool rest up to below center, 1/4 inch below center, 3/8 below center. I want to lock this down, make sure it clears. I want the tool rest parallel to the lathe waste most of the time. So I'm going to sight the tool rest against the lathe waste. I can see it there, looks good to me. Tighten that down. And I'm going to get all the junk off the lathe. I'm going to start with the skew, turn the lathe on, stand aside, let it come up to speed, wearing my safety glasses. First thing I want to do is distinguish between the square pommels and what's going to be the cylinder of the turn. Skew in my hand, I'm going to go straight in on my pencil mark. I'm going to come beside it and go straight in again. Straight in again. Straight in again. Till I'm down to solid wood. Same over here. I'm turning cypress, by the way. It's a softwood. It's alternately hard and soft. People have the illusion, oh, he's turning cypress, it must be easy. It's actually harder to turn softwood than it is to turn a real hardwood. Wood like pear turns beautifully. There's no variation in the grain, nowhere for the tool to go in and out. Wood like this has hard and soft in it. So if you're actually rubbing the bevel, as we're often told to do, the tool's going to bounce on that hard and soft, and you're going to get ripples. Softer wood invites a finer degree of tool control. As a little paradoxical, but it is. Now I'm going to see if I can get this lathe a little bit faster. Turn the dial. Well, turn it. Okay, I'm going to leave it out. I'll be fine here. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is make this round in between the pommel cuts. I'm going to use a large spindle roughing gouge. I'm going to take a marching stand here, start with my feet well positioned. All motion comes from the feet. I'm going to make a traverse. I'm going to end up where I want to end up. I want to be standing comfortably where I want to finish the cut. So I'm going to lean over to where the cut starts and get the corners off. I want this lathe to go faster. Okay, it's 1,000. Spindle roughing gouge is good, basically a skew and a gouge combined, you know. You've got a very straight edge there. So I can go right in here like this. A real clean cut there. I stop the lathe a lot to see how I'm doing. I am not quite square down to around here. I'm going to get there. You can do this with a skew equally well as with a spindle roughing gouge. But since this is a practice run, no matter what I'm going to do next, and it's almost dead round here, there's still little flat spots. I'm going to move the tool rest a bit closer. It wasn't so hard to raise it, I'd probably move it a bit higher. And I'm going to use this, I will take the opportunity to practice with the skew. I'm going to raise it a bit. I like this tool rest to be high for skew work. So that I can work on more on top of the piece than down here. Okay, skew is the same as everything else. It's anchor, bevel, and cut. What I want to do is find the bevel, find the sweet spot. I'm going to cut in the lower part of the edge, not the corner, but the lower part. If this is the normal direction, then the blade of the skew is going to be at about 45 degrees to that. I may change that to see how it cuts, but in the moment, I'm going to start with that. I'm going to just go like this and pare that off. I can nibble away at it. And I can go the full length. I'm going to go the full length. I'm going to use this grip. I've got my boom here. Thing to notice there, let's see, you go as slow as you want to go. There's no reason to race. You can do it at any lathe speed. The lathe can be running this is running at 1200, no, 1000, 1200. I'd be just as comfortable at 2000. I've still got some flat spots in there, I can feel it. The overhand grip, which I like a lot. I get my hand around the workpiece, tool on the tool rest. I'm holding it by the bulbous part and it's in line with my arm. I got my elbow against my body and I can drive it with my thumb. And that leaves a surface that I can sand with 120 and go straight to paint. And I don't have to do much fussing around to get any degree of finish that you want off that. I'm going to take the opportunity to practice my skew cut anytime I'm going to make a cylinder, even though in the turning I'm ultimately going to make it and none of the cylinders are going to remain. But I'm still going to take a chance to practice with the skew, just to get the practice. Now the next thing I want to do is make a cut in the middle. This is a practice piece. This is not a spindle that's good for anything. Part of the tool here.
Can I ask a quick question about the roughing gouge? Do you tend to keep that perpendicular to the piece when you're going across?
Little roughing gouge, you mean,
Yeah.
or the skew?
Roughing gouge.
It's a very versatile thing, you know. I tend to be working on the bottom of it, and yeah, it tends to be perpendicular, a little
Okay.
bit off. Yeah. You can do an awful lot with this. You can do an awful lot of shaping with this as well. And I'm going to try deliberately to use different tools for different things in the course of the demo. How am I doing for time now, just so I know?
It's 20 of 8.
20 of 8. What time do we start?
Sort of about 10 after 7.
Okay.
In about a half an hour.
Okay. I got to make some clearance. First of all, I'm going to show you what I do to practice. But first of all, I'm going to make some clearance. This is my old-time vernier caliper. It's a Sears or General. It's tightened down really hard at A little close on an inch. A little more than an inch. I want to make it a little more than an inch. Again, in line with my arm, my elbow against my body. Take a good stance so I can see what I'm doing. The thing with the parting tool is you have to keep advancing the tool forward as it goes into the work. And if you don't do that, then the bevel is very rapidly not rubbing and you're down there hacking. Okay, there's diameter. I can also do diameter. The old guys will do the same thing with this guy. Here's diameter. And you use them in conjunction with the parting tool, and you can get really, really accurate if you care to. I'm just wanting, but what I usually do, in fact, for that, since I know I want to go to the root diameter, and I know this is 2 inches, I want this to be a ½ inch in, and I can eyeball that. So I probably won't use a gauge at all. I would just eyeball it. And I want a little more room than that. So. Okay. Now I want to practice beads. Practice beads, instead of making a whole bead, what I'm going to do instead, organize my tool rest properly. Parallel here. Probably want it a little down. I'll keep it where it is right now. I'm going to come in off this corner. So working off this way, here I've got it almost at 45. I want the wood to be coming down on its cuts. There's a subtle thing in here. It's hard to explain. It's easy to get a catch and it's easy to not get a catch. When it's cutting right, it just cuts easy. So I can cut this side of a bead, and then I can cut this side of a bead. I'm going to be happier with the tool rest lower. And you do the same with coves. I'm going to do a practice piece. I'm just going to keep moving this back. I can make 200 cuts on here. And at the end of a couple of hundred cuts, I really will have taught my hand something versus making 6 or 8 or 10 beads over there. So that's the reason for doing it this way. And when I'm going to take on a spindle challenge, I'll generally do a bunch of these. Now the thing is that the gouge can climb down around that curve 2 ways. It can start up high, and it can climb down, or it can start almost level. In one version, I lever it up and around, and the other version, I move my whole body around. And you can, this is why I would do practice pieces, to find the mode of action that works best for you, and to get the muscle memory of what you have to do to make half beads just into your body. And it gets to be pretty easy. I can do this all day long. And I recommend anybody who wants to do spindle work, you do the same thing. I can do the very same thing if I want to make coves. I'll make a cove over here. With the cove, you're going in level. This is the place where he's going to catch the most, is right here. Get this wrong, it's going to skitter. It's going to follow the bevel, not anything else. It's going to, wherever the bevel's pointing is where that tool's going to go. I've got it pointed in parallel to the shape that's already there. With my hand firmly on the rest, my attention is on holding the tool down on the rest more than anything else. I'm looking at it over here where I can see the silhouette. I've got the gouge almost fully closed, almost pretty much vertical. There you see it skids. Come back a little bit, I can catch the wood. And rotate the gouge from closed to open. Same on this side. And it really helps to position yourself correctly for each cut. Now I can do this. And similarly to this, I can make cove cuts all afternoon long and get a great deal of practice out of a piece of wood, which will at the end of the day be reduced to a rather ragged dowel. And I recommend that to anybody who wants to fool around with spindle turning. So that's as far as I'm going to go on that one. Any questions or comments?
John, you mentioned about the practice thing. Is it a good idea to use the same type of wood you're planning on making your spindle out for practicing? Because
it doesn't really matter. It is a good idea to get used to the wood you're going to use, but I use whatever I got, and it's often offcuts from something that was longer than I ran into a guy who wanted some help with spindle turning, and he had the idea that he could work with all different length pieces and cut them to length afterward. And he was going to put each piece on, make a cut, take it off, put the next one on, make a cut until he'd made all those cuts, and then put them all back on in sequence again. And okay, I guess, but it made no sense to me. I want them at length now, and that means that when I'm getting ready for a spindle job, I probably have some offcuts, because I'm going to buy 8-foot blanks of 2-inch wood, and I'm going to bandsaw and plane it up to get to my blanks. So I am going to be working with the wood that I've got. Sorry.
Have you ever used, or do you have a statement about using, I've seen it's like a bar that goes on the, away from you, and it has all these fingers on it that have been, they're free to fall, but they're at positions where you're gonna have, like, say, your 1-inch
Yeah.
diameters, and you just turn them until they fall through.
I've seen that. I've never used one.
Oh,
It seems to me it's probably a pretty good production technique, because when you're doing a lot, it gets kind of hypnotic. But
back when you were doing your balusters, you know, that was certainly an opportunity for production.
yeah, but what I find is with my balusters, with these sort of things, you get to where you can make one in 6 or 7 minutes, 8 minutes. So I might make 10 in an hour and a half, and that's it for today. And if I'm making 100, I might do morning and an afternoon and make 20 a day, and I'll be done in a week. And I haven't ever gotten bored. and setting up that apparatus becomes quite a bit of trouble, seems to me. And I'd rather be paying attention to it. But I can see that would work. And there are lots of old guy tricks like that do work. I haven't found the need for them. But I have found that if you want to learn tool work, just keep doing this. Keep making it and moving the bead along till you got nothing left.
John, when you were cutting the coves, you were rotating from closed to open.
Yeah.
When you cut the beads, do you rotate the opposite, or do you not rotate at all?
Yeah, you rotate the opposite, open to close.
Open to close.
Yeah. Exactly.
So the contact point pretty much is always at 12 o'clock when you're using the fingernail gouge. When you rotate.
No, it isn't always at 12 o'clock. It's just off 12 o'clock. At 12 o'clock, you want the wood to be coming down you want the slicing to be going on. So the cut is more over here rather than square on the end of the tool. Or over here. We'll see it again in a minute. I'm going to get another piece of wood on in a minute. Where I want to go next, though, is another slide. Yeah. For me, any project like this is going to start with a sketch. I don't draw very well, so I'll make a sketch that gives me a clue about where I'm going. And these are the sketches I made to get to where I was. I knew I wanted to make a cannon with a ball in between and a couple of beads and a pommel as a demo piece. And I have a use in mind for this. But so that's the drawing I made. From the drawing, now you can turn that off again, I noodled around on the lathe till I got the shapes I like. And by noodling around, I mean, well, first of all, I'll probably work half size for a while. I've got a lot of 1-inch wood. It's pretty easy, not much. These are about 1 inch or 1 1/8 inches square, 12 inches long rather than 24. I can learn an awful lot about what I want to make by making a lot of these. They take no time to make. I have no investment in wood. I can make a dozen and find out what does happen between the size of the ball, which way around the vase goes, and do I want a square fillet someplace or not. And you can explore all of those things at almost no cost in the wood. And I'll do that at this size. And then when I get that pretty much figured out, I'll turn a sample blank and say, oh, that looks pretty good. And then the first thing I'm going to do once I've done that is saw it in half on the bandsaw. And I'm going to saw it in half a little past, right, so I get a full half. So the falling board that I'm not using is a saw blade width, a saw cut less than half. So the full diameter is right here. And I know that because it split the tailstock center. And with that, I can see very clearly what the shape it is I'm making. And more to the point, I can draw it onto a story stick. So now I can trace the actual spindle I made onto the story stick that I'm going to use to turn all of the spindles. And I have a really clean model that I can look at while I'm making them. The story stick gives me all of the information I need. Now, the reason I want first of all, a clean model when I'm making them, is rather than you think you can just do this, right? Well, I'll tell you what happens. You think you're going to make this, and you wind up making this. It is amazingly easy to do that. So I always have either a full sample or the half sample right there where I can see it, so I know where I'm going. And once I've made the story, I can mount another reel blank. And it has a number of characteristics as well.
So John, while you're mounting that, can you tell us about how important it is to have like wood selection, like the grain orientation and
Yeah, this is not the place for your crappy wood. This is not the place for knots or any of the flashy figure. Most spindle work ends up being painted. So we're not even going to see the wood. Or if it isn't painted in old work, it's often stained very dark. You want clean, straight wood. And it's worth paying a premium to get it. I like this cypress. I use it a lot for these kinds of things. It's fun to turn. It's very manageable. It's relatively affordable as these things go. And it's available to me at Groff and Groff, so I use it. And then I make the story stick out of a thin ripping of the same material because I have to get that right in here. If I'm bottoming this out in the chuck, I have to bottom the story stick out of the chuck as well. So I can't do it if it's a big fat piece of wood, and I can't really get anywhere with this thing either. I can't reliably know where I am. But this I can. So what am I going to mark? I'm gonna anchor it in here where it anchors, and I'm gonna mark. In the first place, I'm only gonna mark the pommel. I'm gonna cut the pommels, and I'm not gonna do it. I'll get there in a second. And after that, once I've got a cylinder, I'm going to mark the low points. Where am I cutting in? And the high points where I want to retain the original diameter of the wood. That's the information I need. And then in a vase shape like this, I want to know where the low point is and where the high point is, because I'm going to turn down from here to there and down from here to there. So I use this story stick to accurately locate the elevations of the pieces of the turning on the workpiece. And I use this story stick to set my caliper to whatever diameter I'm interested in at the time. I can set the caliper right on the story stick. I don't have to measure it, I don't have to guess. I can take the measurement directly off the story stick. And so that's why I want a story stick, and I will keep the story stick and date it, and I have a whole stack of them at home from different jobs. You can repeat all the information you need to do the job is on the story stick. We had a discussion the other day also, and this is part of the story stick thing too. If I want a ball in the middle, and I do, how wide is the ball from here to here? If I make this, if this is 2 inches and I make the ball 2 inches, it's going to look like a fat blob because part of it is disappearing into the work here. Well, it's about 2/3 is the answer. So if this is 2 inches, this is going to be 1 3/8 inches. And then it'll look like a round ball. So from the properly prepared blank, I'm going to mount the blank. I'm going to mark where the pommels are and cut the pommels. And I will then be here. And once I've done that, I'm going to mount this blank. I'm going to save you the time it takes to turn the cylinder. I'm being sloppy. I always mark the headstock, and I always mark where I always bring that mark to jaw number 1. I don't intend to put this back on the lathe, but if I had to, I can. And when you wind up with a whole row of them, and one of them is a little bit off, you end up, oh, maybe I will put that back on the lathe. So it helps to be able to do it, even if you don't intend ever to. So here's my mark. And it's going in at the number 1 jaw. There's the tail caught up. There's that caught up. Okay. Now this looks like it might be a complex turning in some way, but actually, look at what's going on. I'm making a half bead, 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 and a half bead. 6 half beads, 2 S curves. That's all there is. So where do you start? If the turning has up and down symmetry and no central element, then I'm going to start at the tail and work toward the head. If the turning has a central element, as this one does, I'm going to start in the middle and make that first. I'll put the tool rest in position and cut the ball. Which means I'm going to come down to there. I don't really care how deep that is. I want it to be one of the two diameters, but I'm not too concerned about it. I don't know why I'm not. And then I'm coming down to here, down to here. I'm just rolling the gouge. And the cut is happening there, below center, with the wood coming down on it, so it's always running away on it. There's no sideways vectors or strange forces. That's got it. That's my central element. So I'm going to make the beads at the ends. You can do all these with a skew as well as with a gouge. I can do it better with a gouge than I can with a skew. Okay, so now I'm going to make this shape. We're going to make it, I want the deepest point here, not here. This is the fat part, this is the thin part. Well, I can mark it. I want the thin, my neck is there, and my fat part is there. That's the neck. And I don't have to, but I can come in with the parting tool. I will find it again. I wanted to show grips. I use this grip a lot, where I'm reaching over the workpiece, my hand around the workpiece, and my thumb on the tool. And I use this grip. This tool rest is too wide for me, but at home with a rod or with a regular smaller tool rest, this grip is called the underhanded Australian. You can get your thumb on the tool, and you can get your finger either on the work or on the bottom of the tool. You can really be in control. Anyway, here, I'm just going to establish the minor diameter. Now I have choices for how I want to get rid of that waste. I might use a roughing gouge. What am I doing? I'm making a low point here and a high point here. So coming down here. I might use a spindle gouge. I got a bit of a lump there that I could take out, which I'll do in a minute. But I can also do the same work with the skew. I'm going to use a little fishtail skew. Then I'm going to reach over the work. Like that, the way I want it. And I'm going to come down here a little more. We do exactly the same at the other end. So I'm going to do a final, we have sheet. The cheat is, you can often go quite crazy trying to nibble this to be perfectly smooth from both directions. A little Boxmaster double-ended negative rake scraper. Eliminates a lot of sins. see this isn't perfectly symmetrical. That's perfect. Since most of this is going to be paint grade, I'll sand that to 120. Knock those two corners, the sharpest corners off of here, because paint won't stick to them, and we're done. This end, very same as this end. Questions, comments?
John, I find that for that raw taper there, that a skew is a lot easier to get the smooth taper than the fingernail gouge. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes, I would agree with that statement. And at home, that's what I would do. Standing in front of a dozen people where, you know, I can bugger it up pretty quick.
Well,
Want to see that? I'll show you.
No, I just meant that I can bugger it up really quickly with the fingernail gouge too, just because it can make it very uneven.
Well, the trick with both of them is we talk about you want to rub the bevel. Well, you don't want to rub the bevel. You want to glide just above the bevel rubbing. When you rub the bevel is when it goes down into the hard and soft of the work and starts to bounce, and you get ripples and all kinds of things. But when you make the cut so that it's just above rubbing, instead of rubbing the bevel, I'm just leaning it forward just a little bit, and I can make a clean cut. And Doug is right. That's the skew is the tool for this. And when you get in the groove, the skew, you can do this whole thing with a skew. Okay, here this is rubbing. Here this is not. On a good day, I'll make that all in one cut, right down to there. You can make this cut with it as well, but this is exactly where you're going to get. I'm not going to do that today. But you can get in the groove where you kind of nibble your way around that curve, and it really works nice. You can make it happen nicely. And I'll usually come in and clean these up with a skew. Just go around the curve. Down like that. And that leaves a finish that you don't have to sand, you don't have to do anything. This is,
If you were going to make chair spindles, would you still have the pommels on there and then waste them off?
no. So chair spindles, you would have a tenon on both ends.
Yeah.
I would still grab this end, make a tenon on this end, reverse it, grab the tenon in a pin jaw chuck, and turn the other end. Yeah. The old guys wouldn't do that. They would use it between a drive spur. I just find that a drive spur and then is a pretty good way to get. You can't keep motion out of it. Whereas you do it this way and you eliminate almost all vibration and flexing. And it doesn't take a minute, but to reverse it if that's what you're going to do.
When you're using the four-jaw chuck, you don't have to put any force on it to turn it. If you're using a spur, you have to push the spur into the wood, so you're actually forcing it together.
That's right.
To make it turn, whereas that, you're just gripping it.
That's exactly right. And so this can spin freely here.
Yes.
Whereas with if I'm using a pyramid point, just a straight straight slope point, it's always I tighten it up. I'll tighten it up. And what you're doing is making a bigger and bigger and bigger dimple, and it starts to vibrate, and you get some ribbing on it, and you go okay, and you tighten it up some more, and pretty soon you've got a pretty big hole over here, and then your spur drive starts to dig, and yeah, it's at the same time. If you're in production, you're going to use this center on the tail, and force the usual cross headstock spur on this end, because the guy who's good at it can swap a piece in and out without stopping the lathe. I can't do that, but people do. And you can get at all parts of the spindle. You don't have to worry about the chuck jaws. I'm willing to trade the stability of the chuck jaws for being able to access all parts of the spindle. Because I'm not in production. I'm not trying to make money. I'm not thinking about really how fast it is, except for it's fun to see how efficient you can get. But I don't care if it takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes to make the spindle. So I don't have to worry about that. I'm sure if I was doing it all day long, I would be using the spur drive, especially on furniture spindles that don't have a pommel on the end. But in this setup, I would deliberately have the pommel. If they're often in furniture, you go pommel on one end and an arrow on the other. Pommel here, arrow here. And I find it easiest for me to work from here to here. Other people will find it easiest to work from here to here. I find it easiest to get myself in place where I can make all the cuts with right-handed, because I'm a right-hander. Other people will train themselves to switch hands. And that's fun. I'm not any good at it, so I'm not going to try and demo it.
Is it more stable towards the headstock?
It stays stable toward the headstock.
So if you started from the tailstock,
I'm starting from the tail to retain the mass, the stability here. Yeah, and that makes sense to me. But I've seen people do it exactly the other way around, and it makes sense to them, and I used to say. So that's the essence of spindle turning, I think, as far as I know. It's kind of fun. It's kind of it's a meditation to get into doing a whole lot of them.
thank you, John.
Thank you.
That was very good tutorial.
Tight enough? Was it perfect? Done in an hour? It was wonderful. Okay.
I mean, it was like an hour to the second, if that's what you were trying to accomplish. It was. I don't think that was the main objective, but that was the second one, and you did it.
Okay, good.
But the first one is, you did a great explanation about spindle turns.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you. Okay, so it's time for show and tell, and the monthly challenge for March was movement and mechanisms.
You take a break or just carry right on?
Well, does anybody want a break? I mean, it's fairly early. Anybody that wants to take a break, please feel free. Movement and mechanisms turn something that spins, opens, moves, or has mechanical elements. I see something here, a couple things. So who wants to go first? Oh, all you people are so excited about going first. Well, I see something there that I know is from Doug, and it moves. So why don't you kick it off, Doug?
Okay.
Oh, hold on. I forgot. That was good.
So to demonstrate how this moves, you do this. I call them spinamids, but they're pyramids, and it's just 4 uniform balls so that when you go like that, it keeps on running. I didn't use any jigs or anything to make this. These are balls I made between centers, and to me, the objective is to see how long you can make it to keep on running. You can put any diameter you want. You can see how if they get the balls the same size, it runs a bit more uniformly. But anyway,
Tell us about the base.
the base.
Where the balls hit it, the spheres hit it.
Oh. You take a look at the base here. You can actually see a spot underneath it. So the actual balls are only hitting these 2 corners on the base as it runs around. So it's like a railway track because it's not hitting anywhere else. It's free to go around on the diameter, and it's like a train going around a corner.
And less friction.
Less friction. Yeah.
And the spheres don't touch one another. The 3
No.
on the bottom.
No, well, no, they don't. They can, but they don't. I was actually it's better if there's a bit of space, because what happens is the top ball tends to force these other 3 apart, so it's balanced between them. So if there's a bit of space between them, it makes it, because again, if you look at the way they roll, I can see it, you can't. But you can actually see that they'd be rubbing against each other to slow it down. So trying to get the balls so that they're a little bit further apart is what you try and do. Anyway, I didn't make this week, but, but I have, this is for my presentation, my thing I'm doing this month up for the Quad State Barges, we're gonna make these things. We're gonna get guys to do it. Because this, no jigs, no force fits, no nothing, just between cone centers and turning away shadows. See? And also, these pieces, when you start making them, you can, with the cones, you can actually take a cube and make a ball out of it that's almost if I take a 2-inch cube, I can get a ball that's 1.995 inches. So it's very, very close. So
Nice.
accuracy of the cone.
Next.
Mine has nothing to do with the challenge.
That's okay.
All right. I only saw the challenge for that last email.
So you have plenty of time.
All weekend.
All weekend, or this morning perhaps, you know.
I came home from Florida, so I was away for a whole week. So, this is a Richard Rafton way of making two identical bowls. And it's in one of his books, if not more than one. This is walnut I cut down. So they are turned this way, okay? And then they come off, and you need to be very accurate to get your screw chuck in the center. And when you do that, then you can turn where you're gonna grab it with your chuck, and then you can hollow it out. Then the real problem is when you start messing with this, keep it the same. I really struggle with that, to keep the two handles the same size, shape and everything. Okay, you can paste that around. And so when I was struggling with that, I just didn't do this one at all. Guess I failed to tell you that two pieces were put together with a piece of paper in between, glued together, turned, and then so I took a knife and it just comes right apart. The paper separates, just type on two. Yeah, yeah.
Put that piece on the table.
This one, I'm sorry.
Now spin it.
Thank you.
It moved.
I know, I'm sorry. Should have went with that. Thank you.
See, it does.
So this is turning with a piece of waste wood in between. Once again, glued with a bag on either side, okay? And then you can see the center, so it was probably turned this way first, okay? And then you turn it this way, okay? Then you take it apart, again, with your knife. And you end up with two pieces to work with. You can see the paper on it. It just comes right apart. Really works nice. And then once again, you've got to get a way of getting a hold of it. Okay, and this is how I did it this time. And then you can turn your ball.
Nice.
So,
Is that paper you're using like a shopping bag?
shopping bag. Shopping bag.
Craft paper?
Yep. Yep. Guess I failed to put the other one on here. This is the same thing. This is all red oak, a tree I took down last January. I've been burning it all winter. And I made them a little bit different. Wasn't trying to match them. But it's just the same procedure. Square bowl, turned on a lathe. The finishes are all rattle can lacquer. And then Beal buffed with carnauba wax.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Well, you're moving them right now.
I'm moving them right now.
All right, I just joined last year,
So when this,
or not last year, few months ago.
Okay.
I'm very new to this. Took some classes at Goggle Works in Reading. If anyone's familiar with that location, they got a lot of good turning classes. First bowl, never made. It's a nice little. The shape got a little wonky as trying to cut off the corners to make the shape, but I was pretty happy with how it came out. And I had an extra piece, so I took it, and instead of going with a tenon, I went with a mortise, and I like it because now they can stack on each other and hold all my stuff in my pockets every day. It works out kind of nice.
So those are your first two bowls?
First two bowls, and the next one moves ice cream from the pint into my bowl. I'm also pretty excited about. And I like this. I used to live in Exeter. I'm sure people are familiar with the emerald ash borer. Had 4 acres, 2 acres of woods. All the ash trees were dead. To get down one of those ash trees, they had to take down a black walnut. So this is actually from my land, which was kind of cool. It finally dried up enough. I don't live there anymore, which is unfortunate because I don't have access to all those really wonderful down trees. But I like it because it stands up too. We had an ice cream scooper, the handle fell off. So just kind of fun to make something that's actually functional. But now I'm watching a spindle turner up here, so hopeful to take a lot of those skills and practice some more. So
Nice work. Very nice.
but I'll leave it over on the table.
That's one thing, 4 views, because I can't show a video to you, right? I could, but I can't here. I've been trying to make at least one wig stand a week with an off-center or multi-axis pedestal turn. In this case, the base was also off-center turned, or whatever you want to call it, on the lathe. I generally keep the top and bottom the natural wood, in this case spalted maple, and use whatever for the middle because I'm using iridescent paint on it. The turning on, just for your experience, I turned the pedestal with a very deep, which meant I had my points way out, very deep coves, and I guess you want to say beads on. The beads were cut on the center line, but the coves were turned off center, opposite center, parallel centers. What I did on this though was, after I had that all done, it was at 3 inches, which is where I started. I want them down to 2. I put them on the center line and I turned them down to straight, even 2 all across, which made the coves shallow. And I like the look of it. I'm not keen on sharp edges, particularly on a device like this. So I like the rounding that happened when I did that. And then I didn't try to protect any edges when I sanded as well. I had fun with my cove cutter and burning tool. So I burned on the off-center sides. I burned the in, and then I stied the inner side of it. I actually used the jig I built with you guys who were on Thursday mornings saw my jig. Well, I bought the second one and built one to hold sorry, I went the wrong direction, to hold my die grinder so that it doesn't walk when you go in. You just swing it in and do it. So that's the bottom. I got fancy with that, even though nobody will hardly ever see it except the person I give it to. So I'm having fun with it. I'm in the middle of another one. I'm trying to have, like I said, one a week. It's good experience. I am fascinated with the off-center turning, so it's good practice for me to do the pedestals that way. Takes more time, obviously, than just turning a straight dowel. So
Nice.
that's it.
Hi. So I've got a couple of bowls here. This is something I roughed out in 2012. Our niece lives nearby, and she had a walnut tree taken down. I don't think I'm going to be able to see. I haven't got around to taking some pictures. There's some beautiful figure. I don't think it's going to pick it up.
Yeah, we see some of it.
Yeah, it's kind of crude. It's about 9 inches by 3 inches or so. I've got another one that I had my sister-in-law about a month ago said I need a piece of burl to put on my display shelves, and I started looking for something on the internet for her. And then I remembered I had a piece, I think, kicking around in my workshop, which I think came from an estate sale from within the guild, or I'm not sure exactly what, but it had been a core out from, it was about 9 inches in diameter again. It's got some beautiful figure.
What kind of wood is it?
And for that, I've made a little display stand. Let's see if I can get it up here to show. So these are the base supports for the bowl are turned just from some 5/8 dowel. This is a piece of 3/8 dowel and a couple of inches of cherry to put the legs in. So I have a drilling jig I used for that. So it will sit on there quite nicely. I have to take some photos, but just
Hey,
I've been
Mike,
trying to get some workshop time into. It's better than watching the news these days, you know.
Hey, Mike, what's the wood of the bowl, the burl?
The burl, I
Yeah.
think it's hard maple. I don't think it was big leaf maple. It looked like hard maple to me. It's got some beautiful figure on the bottom. I was really tempted to put some blue dye there because it looks like water, but I couldn't ruin it.
Oh, Toby would have
Yeah, I
died
was thinking of Toby
nicely.
when I was doing it, you know.
So, other business. A couple months ago and then last month, we talked about naming our workshop after our friend Ben. We spoke to Kyle, we spoke to Amy. They seemed to be fine. They thought that Ben would appreciate that. We had a few suggestions of names. One was the Ben Kaufman Woodturning Studio. The other is the Ben Kaufman Woodturning Workshop. And I just wondered if people would like to take a vote on those two, or if somebody has any other ideas, either here or on Zoom.
I think workshop would fit my impression of Ben more so than studio.
Well, then how about if we say everybody in favor of Ben Kaufman Woodturning Workshop? Raise your hands. I think that's it. So it will now be known as the Ben Kaufman Woodturning Workshop. And every time we come here, at some point, we will make a sign or a plaque to let everybody know that we've named this after Ben.
I have something with respect to Ben Kaufman as well.
Okay.
One of the things we talked about was making some pens for the family.
Yep.
And I was at Ben's workshop helping Amy yesterday. Sorry. At Ben's workshop helping Amy yesterday, and I got a bunch of wood from the shop itself. And this is a piece of zebra wood that I cut into pen blank sizes, so that people, you know, there's enough there for 5 inches. At 5 inches each, that's
a few pens.
That's a few pens. I don't know how many we need to make, but I'd like to also not just do them all myself. So, if there, you want to?
So what if we've never turned a pen? What do we need to turn a pen?
Pen kit.
I mean, a pen kit. And then
just the pen anvil.
Yeah, come up to my shop and I got.
You got a bunch of. Do you have any anvils?
Huh?
The.
Yeah.
I mean, is this something that people would be interested in doing at Open Shop coming up on the 14th?
Sure.
Yeah, I can bring my mandrels.
I can bring my mandrels. I know if I could borrow the one that was Ben's from his shop. Amy isn't aware that it's there. I don't think, but I spotted it. So, but you know, if all we need to do is get a bunch of pen kits.
Now we have to drill them, though. We have to drill these, right?
Yeah, but that's again a drill press.
Well,
we don't have a drill press here.
No,
We drill them on the lathe.
I mean, can we drill them on the lathe or not?
And I have my. I can bring my squeezer together thing. Yeah, vice. That's it.
Your squeezer together thing.
Together thing.
When you just use pin, when you drill them on the lathe, you just use pin jaws for holding it, or what?
Yeah, use just small jars.
Okay.
So we could.
Doug,
Yeah.
do you have any pen kits left over from that job you did from Jerry's friend?
Oh yeah, I've got a bunch of pen kits. I'll bring those along too, and I've got some spare pen kits as well. But I was thinking that the club might also, if you go to Penn State, you can get for the slimline pens, which are nice as anything.
I have a whole pile of them.
So we can bring a bunch of pen lines and maybe make that a project for people to participate on Saturday.
And even if everybody's not making them, we can at least watch somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
Showing the ropes.
Sure.
Which includes.
You'll also need like 7mm drill bits.
Yeah, I got
or
one.
something that's specific to the pen kit, because they do vary. Sometimes they're 8 in different diameters.
Well, again, they are 7mm. Again, we can get a couple of drills. The drilling only takes a short time, and I generally use super glue gel to put them to stick the things in. I don't know what do you use mostly, Angela? Glue. Pardon? Gorilla glue?
Yeah, but you need it needs to set overnight.
Okay.
So, or if you're going to demonstrate here,
okay.
Use the quick set gel.
Okay. Well, I could cut these up and make a bunch of them with a center line so that we could demonstrate with a regular set. Anyway, regardless, it's easy enough to do once you get them in there. And the other part of it is that for those of you who want to practice your using your skew, this is a good.
The flat cutter thing.
Yeah, the flat cutter.
Flat cutter thing. Yeah, you use a flat cutter
with
thing
the
after you use the
thing.
squeezy thing.
I'm sure it never happened.
Hey, Doug, what are you finishing them with?
Well, anybody can do anything. I often just use a Beal polish, because when you handle the pens enough, to be honest, they shine up by themselves. But some people like to use even the Gorilla Glue for the finishing it with them, because if you CA glue, sorry, yeah, or friction polish is CA glue, whichever one you want.
You don't use the can of shiny stuff.
No.
The shiny spray and stuff.
No.
Right.
Well, again, I like to keep them as natural as possible. That's just my preference. So when I do it, I try not to get too much stuff on it. So. But a lot of people use CA glue, and what I do with the CA glue is the little packets, the little plastic packets that the pens come in, you actually use that to distribute the CA glue across the pen, and then a little bit of fixture that's done in a minute. So you can actually go from go to go and quite quickly.
Do you sand it? Does it need sanding after you put the glue?
No, not if you do it properly. You sand it beforehand.
Right.
Course.
No, of course.
Yeah. It's
okay.
It depends on how heavy you get with this
CA glue.
Yeah.
If you get it a little thick, then you have to
sand it back.
Yeah,
and polish it back.
And polish it back.
Well, again, for me, what I do is if I have a couple pieces of threaded rod, I will make, say, 10 pens or 5 or 6 pens at a time, so there are 4 blanks on the rod. I'll put that on the rod, and then with a little piece of plastic between each pen part, then I can actually take that to the Beal polisher, just run it along there, and polish the whole thing off.
Bob's your uncle.
Bob's your uncle. Yeah. So.
He's my cousin.
Angela was my uncle, actually.
Angela's your uncle.
And I have other wood other than this. I've got some walnut, a couple of other exotics as well. So I don't know how many your family needs, Amy, but I'm sure they'll go a long way.
Well, there's always more where that came from.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, right. One.
That's 3. Okay. If anybody wants to do some at home, take a second for that. Do you want one? No, okay.
Anybody thought about using corian? They gotta have scraps here.
Corian?
For pen, yeah.
I never thought of it. Is that?
It's hard.
No, we haven't thought about that.
Probably there's some in the dumpster right now.
Sure. Okay, I'll hold your ankles.
Only you got one of those spinny rounder things, you're good.
Yeah,
we got one there, we got one there. Okay. So before I forget, I want to thank Barry and Bill Heaps. Barry built this bench for the relocated monitors to make it easier for the demonstrator to see what's going on. And Barry also made another grinder bench. Angelo's proposal that we're going to work on is to use all 4 grinders, each one with a different setup, so that basically we can see how the different grinders work with various tools. Initially, there was a suggestion to keep one as stone, because right now I think we only have one CBN wheel, well, one grinder with CBN. But I think because of safety measures, we'd really rather just have all CBN wheels. They're not going to shatter like a stone might. And most people these days, I think, have CBN wheels. So I don't have a price on this yet. I don't know how much the CBN wheels might cost, but I'm guessing they're going to total more than $500. I'm not sure. Or I think we need a total of 6 wheels. Per wheel. Yeah, so it's going to be more than 500. So I don't know if it's premature to take a vote now for people to approve this. I'm guessing 750 or thereabouts. Can we have a show of hands of people who approve us spending that much money? Okay, thank you. Are there any objections or other suggestions? What's that?
Another 7.
Yeah, yeah. And we also might have to buy, I don't know if it's 1 or more jigs, which also are not inexpensive. Right, because we want to make sure they're outfitted properly with the various jigs. We have one here that I think Angelo can help us revive. It's in the drawers over here. I don't know if you want it. I bought a Kodiak system instead of a Wolverine when I set up my grinder. I mean, I started out with a Sorby, and I still have the Sorby Pro Edge, which I like. But I thought I would also try grinders, and so I bought Kodiak first from Woodturner Wonder. It's okay. It was awkward because it sits on a plinth that's already, so it makes it really high for my workbench, and it was just an awkward grind. So I traded that in, and I bought a Wolverine, but I'm happy to donate the Kodiak if people think it's worth having that year. I don't know. I mean, it seems silly to have it if nobody has a Kodiak and are interested in that. So.
It sharpens tools, doesn't it?
Well, you have to put the tool on it, but yeah. It does sharpen tools, but I don't know, because Angelo was thinking about different setups. So, Angelo, I don't know if you want to talk about that for a second.
Don't want to talk about it. I'll tell you.
But if you would, that would.
And I talk about different setups. Just one of the things that I've been working on with this thing I'm doing out in Rogers is actually taking. I made myself up some dowels that are like the diameter are like tools.
Scale models.
Scale models as a tool, so I could actually go on to the Wolverine jig and do a bunch of different angles, backups, and setups to show people exactly what happens when you change length. Like this is the taper back of the jig and the different angles you can get at. Just to make it, it's not so that it's not so much to convince you one is right or one is wrong. It's just this shows you the variation. And when you talk about that, and Angelo brought this along tonight for me, so I can look at this as well. This is the tool that started it all for our jigs.
Yeah, bring it over here so people can see.
Who was the guy? What was the?
This is Jerry Glazer's sharpening jig. This is the precursor to the Wolverine. The pivot, in this case, is at this point on the end, on the threaded end. It sits in a pivot point that you have to set up to your grinder in particular. So many inches away from the face of the wheel, centered on the wheel, works just like the Wolverine. Wolverine, one way, took this idea and put the pivot up at the bottom of the grinder. As long as the geometry is the same, the grind is the same.
So, and what I'm doing with the work I'm currently doing is to demonstrate using graphics and engineering things how little variation. You not only is the grind the same, but you can get some fairly wacky things. But what matters on all these things is that length, this length, and position going into the tool. So if the ratios are the same, the grind's the same. And if the ratio is different, the grind isn't all that different either sometimes. So because it goes, you can imagine this, when you go from this side to that angle, you're only changing this flatness. So you're not really changing the angle as it goes around very much. So again, it's a interesting thing, and that's what I'm working on. But anyway, and the other thing I did for jigs, and this is what John was talking about. This is a straight skew. This is 20 degrees, and that's 30 degrees. Now, I maintain that if you're sitting in the back, you can't see that big a difference between the 20 and the 30 degrees on the skew angle, but you can feel it on the lathe. So it's less. What's less important is the angle, and more important that you use one that's comfortable for you. The other part I did is also the retained. This is a 30 degree retained, and a 20 retained. Included angle, 30 and 20 degree included angle. All these things were ground at the same thing on the same lathe on the same grinder, and it's again. What I wanted to do is just demonstrate that, that is riding the bevel on that end. On the other end, the bevel is a lot lower. So again, you're seeing the sharpness. When these come down to the very tip and you're on almost a 90 degree up the top, it's almost a perfect razor blade down here. So it's not necessarily as much the bevel angle as it is how comfortable you are, where you are positioned, and also where not riding it too heavy and not doing whatever on that sort of thing. And I'm going at it and I'm making up, hopefully, a presentation and put it in a bit so I can actually get this in a bit more detail to show people. But that's my current project.
If we only had a metallurgist here.
Yeah, I know. What the hell? Or an engineer.
Or an engineer who happens to be a metallurgist.
Well, I'll be talking about steels and other things as well, but this was just about grinding because I've had so many people ask questions about what's the right, what's the difference between between a Wolverine and one of these and other things. Basically, it's the same 3-point turn and everything like that, so it's all in the geometry. And does it make a difference on the wing? Yeah. In truth, I can even point to how far you have to turn to go from 90 to 45 degrees. The little part right in that section is all you're using, but that's the biggest variation in the whole tool when you're grinding it as well. So again, it's just a fascinating subject. Anyway, I could go on and on, as you can tell.
No. So, Angelo,
yes.
Pick it back up. What are the systems that you think should be on the grinders?
Okay, well, the club owns the sharpening jig from Johannes Nicholson. Stand right here. Thanks. The club owns the Johannes Nicholson jig. We also own the Ron Brown jig. Ron Brown is, if you listen to Stuart Batty, you can't grind a 40-40 grind with a jig. You have to learn how to grind it by hand. Fact is, Ron Brown invented a jig that you can use to grind a 40-40. The Johannes Mikkelsen setup grinds 3 bevels that he uses in his hat making. It's a less catchy gouge. And I thought if we had them all set up here, that you can try each one to see which one suits you in your turn. The other thing that I've done with Wolverine, if you look at Wolverine, the setups are infinite because all of the measurements are infinitely adjustable. What I've done with my Wolverine at home is I've set up stops. To set up the stop for the V gouge, to set up the projection of the tool from varigrind, the angle of the leg on the varigrind, all those are repeatable. So we set, that's 3 different systems right there. And if you take, what's the name of your other one?
Kodiak.
Kodiak. So now you have 4 different systems that you can try to see which one you like the best. When I was first started turning, I used to have a turning tool library. I used to lend out my tools to different people who wanted to try a particular gouge or a particular skew. But I closed that library down because they weren't returning the books. So I lost more tools than I had. Yes, sir.
As an inexpensive alternative to the Wolverine is the original David Ellsworth word. You can use threaded rod or non-threaded rod bent at 23 degrees, and it instead of using the adjustable bracket under the grinder, you just clamp a board like to the top of the grinder stand with recesses in it. And
It's another way to make the grind repeatable.
I'll bring the Ellsworth to the work open shop.
And you can also set that up with the Wolverine jig.
You can, yes.
And it's just a square piece with a little V plywood to raise it up to the proper
Because
height.
you already bought the Wolverine jig, there's no point in doing this. It's just gets you there with about
Right.
$5 investment.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
And once again, you can reproduce an Ellsworth jig on a Wolverine and on a Wolverine jig on
Sure.
another one. So it's like,
Yep.
my message is not just choose your grinder, choose the grind you like and then stick with it.
Right.
You know,
Are you leaving that here or are you taking
I'm
it?
taking it with me.
You are.
It's my peg leg.
Yeah, it also works as a cane, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or a weapon.
Or a weapon.
But not of mass destruction.
So I will also remind folks, probably every month, Curtis is doing a great job with setting up our demonstrations. So if you are either interested in seeing something in particular demonstrated or interested in demonstrating something yourself, please let Curtis know. I think we're still seeking Ikebana turnings if people want to do that. Barry had a sheet to show us what the dimensions need to be for the little stainless steel cups. And you've had some cups also, right?
Well, I've been waiting for people to ask for them.
You have them, right? Who has them?
I have the cups.
He makes them. I have stainless steel ones that were purchased at the beginning, but Doug
To make cups.
makes a 3D printer plastic,
Oh,
2-inch
2-inch.
OD, 1-inch deep. That
With a bit of a
is very desirable. It has a little flange on top, so it sits in the hole.
okay. So if anybody wants to do that, plus there was a sheet to show the maximum dimensions of these Ikebana bases because they're supposed to fit in a certain size box, I believe.
Less than 6 inches, but more than 5.5
Right. And the thickness is about 2 inches or something like that.
or less.
2 inches or less.
1.5 or more.
Okay. So sitting over by Tina, who is John's better half, are, I don't know, 8 to 10 sheets of, I'd say the list of things that need to be acquired or done for the annual picnic. But my first question is, and we don't need to answer tonight, but please come to the next meeting with your thoughts. Who is interested in attending or who plans to attend the picnic? And if you do plan, that is what I put together from last year, to just thinking it would make it easier for subsequent years, not that that's ironclad. But if you are interested in a picnic and we have the critical mass to have one, to make it worthwhile, please think about volunteering to assist with it, because it's not difficult, but it takes some preparation to collect everything and then set it up at the shop or the Manheim Park and so on and so forth. So I won't take a poll now, but next week or next month, please think about it. Both if you're interested in one and if we have enough people, are you interested in helping with the picnic prep? And I guess the last question is, does anybody else have anything either here or on Zoom that they'd like
Hey,
to?
John.
Yes, sir.
When is the picnic? What date? Roughly.
July meeting date.
It's the July meeting date, whatever the first Tuesday is in July.
Okay. Okay.
I can tell you in a second. First Tuesday in July is the 7th. So it's July 7th. Does anybody have, Mike?
Yeah, I got something. I don't know how many people are familiar with the Goggle Works in Reading. It's an art center. It's right near the Penn Street Bridge, which goes across 422. Anyway, Derek Weidman's the shop manager there for the wood shop. And he's really close to getting together, starting a new turning club that is going to meet there.
Wow.
He's talking April. I'm thinking more realistically would probably be May. But anyway, love for everybody to come out and support him once he gets this thing up and running. Just kind of a heads up for everybody. He's thinking probably a Monday maybe for a meeting of the week. Nothing's really set in stone. We're just kind of working on it.
Can you send Tom or me or somebody the particulars when you find out, Mike?
Sure, once we find out. Like I say, he's been talking with Carl about getting a one-way lathe there for the club and everything. It's a great facility for there. I don't know how far away it is from everybody here, but
about 40 minutes from Lancaster.
Well, that's pretty close.
I mean, I drive 40 to 45 to come here.
Sure.
So about an hour and 40.
You could switch clubs.
The other direction.
Yeah, I live south of Lancaster.
Yeah. But that's all. I just want to give a heads up to everybody, and hopefully we'll put out something to all the clubs in the area about it. We can just be looking for support.
Great.
Is the information on the Goggle Works website?
No, not yet.
All right.
Anybody plan on going to Totally Turning up in Saratoga?
I don't know. Anybody? I don't see any hands, Gary.
Okay, just curious. We got about 15, 20 from my club going.
What am I missing? Am I missing anything? First of all, I just wanted to thank Barry for making both of these stands or tables. That's very helpful. Barry always just shows up and brings stuff. So thank you. I know Barry was looking for a lot of applause for that, so I wanted to make sure we gave it to him.
That's why I came tonight.
But you didn't show it. It moves, it rolls around. Okay.
John, just
John,
real quick,
yes.
I said something last month, right before I left. They did bring some cherry wood. If
Oh,
anybody's
right.
interested. They have, I think, 6 more pieces. If people are interested. to take
Outside?
them tonight.
Outside.
The back of my truck.
All right. Thank you. So anybody wants whatever John is offering, catch up after we're closing, which is, I guess, right now. So thank you all.
Thanks.